Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh Ji. Today is Sangrand of Chet, that is first day of the month of Chet. Bara Maha, Bani of 12 months recited by 5th Guru, Shri Guru Arjan Dev Saheb Ji, begins from the month of Chet. So Chet is the first month in Sikh calendar. First day of Chet, that is Sangrand of Chet, is considered to be the first day of the Sikh year. So today is the first day of Sikh New Year. Many greetings to everyone on this day. This is the Shabad or teachings of Guru Arjan Dev Sahib Ji for this whole month. Chet Govind Aradhyay ਹੋਵੇ ਆਨੰਦ ਘਣਾ ਸੰਤ ਜਨਾ ਮਿਲ ਪਾਈਐ ਰਸਨਾ ਨਾਮ ਭਣਾ ਜਿਨ ਪਾਇਆ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਆਪਣਾ ਆਏ ਤਿਸਹਿ ਗਣਾ ਇਕ ਖਿਨ ਤਿਸ ਬਿਨ ਜੀਵਣਾ ਬਿਰਥਾ ਜਨਮ ਜਣਾ ਜਲ ਥਲ ਮਹੀਲ ਪੂਰਿਆ ਰਵਿਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਣਾ ਸੋ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਚਿਤ ਨ ਆਵਈ ਕਿਤੜਾ ਦੁਖ ਕਣਾ ਜਿਨੀ ਰਾਵਿਆ ਸੋ ਪ੍ਰਭੂ ਤਿਨਾ ਭਾਗ ਮਣਾ ਹਰ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਕੋ ਮਨ ਲੋਚਦਾ ਨਾਨਕ ਪਿਆਸ ਮਨਾ ਚੇਤ ਮਿਲਾਏ ਸੋ ਪ੍ਰਭੂ ਤਿਸ ਕੈ ਪਾਏ ਲੱਗਾ ਹਰ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਕੋ ਮਨ ਲੋਚਦਾ ਨਾਨਕ ਪਿਆਸ ਮਨਾ ਚੇਤ ਮਿਲਾਏ ਸੋ ਪ੍ਰਭੂ ਤਿਸ ਕੈ ਪਾਏ ਲੱਗਾ ਚੇਤ ਗੋਵਿੰਦ ਆਰਾਧਿਐ ਹੋਵੇ ਆਨੰਦ ਘਣਾ Guru Arjan Dev Sahib Ji starts from the month of Chet, that in the month of Chet we should meditate upon Gobind. Gobind means nurturer of earth, Almighty Waheguru, by which we will get ultimate bliss, Anand Kana, ultimate bliss. Sant jana mil paiye rasna naam pana. But this recitation of Waheguru's name through tongue, rasna, is attained in the Sangat of the saints. Jin paya prabh apana aaye tishe gana. Those who have attained Prabhu. Prabhu means one who exists from itself, Almighty Waheguru. Those who have attained Prabhu, Almighty Waheguru, only their coming on this earth is fruitful, blessed. Ik khin tis bin jeevana birtha janam jana. Living without him, even for a moment, makes the birth of human being useless. Jal thal mahiyal puriya ravya vich vana. The Lord is present in water, land, earth, and sky, and also present in the forests. So prabh chit na avai kittada dukh gana. The grief suffered by the people who do not remember this kind of Prabhu is beyond counting. Jini ravya so Prabhu tina pag mana. Those who have recited that Prabhu, they have enjoyed this bliss due to their great fortune. Har darsan ko man lochda nanak pyas mana. In the end of this Shabad, 5th Guru Nanak, Shri Guru Arjan Dev Sahib Ji states that my man or mind desires for the darshan or glimpse of Hari, Waheguru, and there is great thirst for that darshan in my heart. Chet milaye so Prabhu, tis kai paye laga. By the month of Chet, Guruji says that whoever unite me with that Prabhu, Almighty Waheguru Lord, I will touch the feet of that person. Har darsan ko man lochda नानक प्यास मना, चेत मिलाए सो प्रभु, तिस कै पाए लगा। वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह।
डंडाउत बंधन अनकबार, सर्व कला समरथ, डोलन तेरा खो प्रभु, नानक दे कर हथ। तेरे जोर मैं गुंगा कहता हूँ, तेरा सदका तेरी शरण। धन साहिब श्री गुरु ग्रंथ साहिब जी दी गुरु खालसा साध संगत साहिब जीओ, वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। We're blessed again to be gathered together to celebrate the new year for the Guru Khalsa. So Sahib Sri Guru Arjan Dev Sahib Ji and Sahib Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji have both given us a Bani of Barah Maha, the 12 months of the year, as per mentioned in Sahib Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji has given this Bani in Tukhari Rag, and Sahib Sri Guru Arjan Dev Sahib Ji has given this Bani in Maj Rag. So Sahib Sri Guru Arjan Dev Sahib Ji at their times at Manji Sahib, just outside of Harmandir Sahib, just outside of the Sarovar, where the Katha of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji happens daily from the times of Guru Arjan Dev Sahib Ji. Guru Arjan Dev Sahib Ji's Diwan is at that Manji Sahib Sthan. Gursikhs such as Bhai Sallo Ji, Baba Buddha Sahib Ji, the Bibi Mai Seva Ji, who's from the times of Guru Amar Das Sahib Ji, used to come and do Seva at Goindwal Sahib and Sri Harmandir Sahib. They're all there. Baba Buddha Sahib Ji stands up at the start of the month and does a benti to Guru Arjan Dev Sahib Ji and says that Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji has given us the Bani of Bara Maha in Tukhari Rag. But the deeper meanings are very difficult to understand and to open. So please bless us. And Guru Arjan Dev Sahib Ji recited the second Bara Maha in Maj Rag, so it's easier for Gursikhs to understand. The first month in Bara Maha is Chet. Chet is the beginning of the new year. So today we're celebrating the new year as per our Guru's teachings. It's the month of Chet, and we call this Sangrand, the first day of the month. And we celebrate Sangrand in the sense that we come together to do Sadh Sangat, and Guru Sahib Ji gives us teachings. So sometimes we question, why do we celebrate Sangrand? Sangrand is nothing to do with Sikhi. Sangrand is just the changing of the month. And just like in this country or in these Western countries, Sunday is a day of shutti, is a day of rest, is a day of holiday. We don't necessarily work on Sundays, and people come together and do Sangat in the Gurdwara on a Sunday. In the same way, in the old days, the day of Sangrand, the first day of the month, that would be the day when the Sangat would come together and do Sadh Sangat. So in different religions, they may celebrate Sangrand in different ways, but Gursikhi way is always to do Sadh Sangat, to do Seva, to do Katha Kirtan. That is the way we celebrate our Jod Mele, our events. And in this way, Sangrand is a day when we come together and we celebrate the change of the month by doing Sadh Sangat, and we take the teachings of what our Guru says for that month. So Bara Maha from Guru Arjan Dev Sahib Ji, we're going to reflect on the month of Chet, and we're going to take the first two panktiyan of this Barah Maha part by Sri Guru Arjan Dev Ji. Chet Govind Aradhiya Hove Anand Kana. So Sahib Sri Guru Arjan Dev Sahib Ji is saying in this month of Chet, Govind Aradhiya. Govind means go. If we translate that word go, means Prithvi, this world. Vind, Rakhanwala, Rakhanhar, to the protector of this world, the protector of this universe, the protector of creation. Chet. In the month of Chet, Govind Aradhiya. Aradhiya means to yearn for, to call out for, to remember, to simmer, to do abhyas of, to remember the Almighty Lord who is the protector of the universe. That is the hukum we're given in the month of Chet. Chet Govind Aradhiya. And then what happens if we do that? Hove Anand Kana. Hove, what happens? Anand. Anand is true bliss. Anand is when we have no duality, when we have no love for anything else, and the love is a pure love for Waheguru. Kana. Kana Anand. Kana Anand is an extreme bliss that never goes away. So in this month of Chet, we should remember the Almighty Lord Waheguru, and what we get is the extreme bliss that takes us from duality and never goes away and never breaks. That true love, that true bliss develops. There's different types of Anands. Anand, you can have Bhajan Anand. Bhajan Anand is one of those when you're doing Simran, when you're doing Sangat, you get a bliss. You get peace for that instant. But then when you come away from that, that peace and that bliss is lost. Kana Anand is one that never breaks no matter what action you're doing during the day. So if we take an example of a stream or a river, as streams and rivers flow, as rain comes down, then streams and rivers develop and more rainwater goes in those streams and rivers. And so they're flowing and there's a lot of water in those streams and rivers. And sometimes we have floods from those. But in the hot months, sometimes in some countries, those streams and rivers can dry out and there's no water left in those. So that is like Bhajana Anand, where for the moment, for that instant, where the rain of kirpaa is coming down on us, we experience that bliss and that peace. But when that rain of kirpaa stops, because we've started to do other actions, our mind has gone into duality, into materialistic ways, then we lose that extreme bliss. But Bhajana Anand is that, but Kana Anand is like the ocean. The ocean never dries out. Doesn't matter how hot, doesn't matter where you are around the world, the ocean water will never dry out. It always remains and it never dries out. The kirpaa is always flowing. So in the same way, Kana Anand, the kirpaa is always flowing. No matter what action we do, whether it's a worldly action, whether it's a spiritual action, that Anand, that peace, that true bliss never goes away. So Sahib Sri Guru Arjan Dev Sahib Ji saying, in this month of Chet Govind Aradhiya, Hove Anand Kana. If we remember the Almighty Lord Waheguru, then that extreme bliss that never goes away will always remain with us. But Chet has also a deeper meaning, because these months of Baramaha, not only do they give us the teaching of the months, Guroo Saaheb Jee gives us 12 avasthas. And as we go through this series, we will reflect on those different avasthas each time. And in this month of Chet translates further to this human life. This human life, what is this human life for? This human life is for Chet, to remember, because Chet can also mean to remember. Cheta Rakhana. So in this human life of Chet, we are here to Chet. So in this human life of Chet, we are here to remember. Who are we here to remember? Govind Aradhiya. We're here to remember the Almighty Lord. This is the opportunity in this human life to remember the Almighty Lord and break free from the 8.4 million birth and death life cycle. So while we're here in this human life form, we must always try and remember God. We start that by just whispering or speaking Waheguru, Waheguru. If we don't know any part or any of the Bani, we can just recite Waheguru. And then if we're at our place of work, we can whisper that with our tongue. Waheguru, Waheguru. So only we can hear it, so the people around us may not necessarily hear it. And then that Simran develops within, and we don't even have to move our tongue. It will go inside, and those Guru Sikhs who do this will know how this path of spirituality develops, and everything goes by itself from the inside, and we'll constantly remember Waheguru. And then from there, Hove Anand Kana, we will get that extreme bliss of breaking free from the 8.4 million birth and death life cycle and becoming one with the Almighty Lord, and that is when we get extreme bliss. So in this month of Chet, the new year, we must remember the Almighty Lord Akal Purkh Waheguru, who is the protector of the universe, the protector of all his creation, including us. We remember him, we will gain extreme bliss. But further still, if we remember Akal Purkh Waheguru, the protector of us, the complete protector, the Almighty Lord, in this Chet, in this human life of Chet, and we remember, we do Chetana of Akal Purkh Waheguru, of this Almighty Lord, then we will also gain extreme bliss. So the teaching for the month and the teaching for our life is to remember the Almighty Lord, and we will gain extreme bliss because we will be taken out of the birth and death life cycle. We'll be one with the Almighty Lord. Let us hope and pray that Guru Sahib Ji blesses us and showers us with that kirpaa, that we can remember him at all times, and he can break us free from the birth and death life cycle and join us back into himself. Kirpaa rakho Akal Purkh Waheguru, that you bless us with that kirpaa, that we can do that. Deho sajjan asisadiyan jo hova sahib se mel lekha kat hai na shutiya khen khen pulan बक्सनहार बक्सला नानक पार उतार वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to see more of our content. This year marks the 400 year Avtar Purab of Sri Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji, so subscribe to see more content related to this.
ਲਾਈਆਂ ਯਾਰ ਚੀ ਉਡਾਰੀਆਂ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਨੀ the Mahalla now in the Anandpur Stadium. Absolutely amazing, having the time of my life.
What's happening?
So all the Nihang Singhs have got here, and now they're all like, they're parading in front of each other, showing off their skills to everyone. You can see some Nihangs were on 3 horses at the same time. Whoa, that was very, very close. They nearly got trampled over a lot of times as well, but it's very electric atmosphere, isn't it? Very electric. So Sip, what brought you to Anandpur today?
Curiosity, and I would name curiosity Onkar. It's a friend I met in Armitsa, and he told me, man, if you go to India, you have to see the Hola Mala. I was like, okay, let's have a look. And here I am, maybe one of the biggest day of my life. So much colors, so much music, sounds, and people. It's an absolutely stunning event, and I will remember my whole life. Thank you, India. Thank you, Onkar. Thank you, everybody.
Great.
Waheguru, Waheguru, Waheguru.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So we're here in California with you in Riverside by Bhai Jesspreet Singh, and we're celebrating the 200th Shaheed Purav of Baba Phula Singh. We're driving down to a camp, and I was wondering if you had any questions about Baba Phula Singh.
I have a ton. So I've heard that Kali Baba Phula Singh Ji was during Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time, that time of Khalsa Raj. But I guess what I'm curious to know is, did he have Jathedari before the Raj happened or after?
That's a great question. Yeah, Babaji was born in 1761, and Khalsa Raj formally comes into place around 1799.
Okay.
And it lasts formally until 1839, which is when Maharaja Ranjit Singh passes away. So you were saying,
when was he given the Jathedari?
Great. So he was given Jathedari of Akal Takht by Baba Nana Singh, who was the 5th Jathedar of Akal Takht and Bundadal. So Babaji became the 6th Jathedar of Akal Takht and Bundadal, and they received Jathedari around the 1800s.
1800s?
Yeah.
Okay, and Khalsa Raj started?
1799.
1799, so a year after.
Basically, yep.
Okay, and so Babaji was probably around like what, 39, 38, 39?
Yes.
Okay. And so when Babaji was born, were his parents prevalent in his life, or who were his parents, or how was he as a child?
So when he was born, he had both of his parents alive.
Okay.
So Babaji's dad's name was Bhai Ishir Singh, who was a Nihang Singh, and he was part of the Nishan Wali MSO. So he was a soldier in the Nishan Wali MSO. And Babaji's mom's name, different names come for their mom in history. One prominent one is Harkaur. So Bibi Harkaur was their mom, but they didn't really experience the love of their parents for too long. Babaji's dad passed away when Akali Phula Singh was only 1 year old.
What?
So when they were 1, their dad was fighting in the Vadda Kanukara, the big genocide that took place. And so they received a fatal blow during that time. They survived it, but that blow became dirila, like it became poisonous to them. And a few months later, they passed away.
So his father was a Shaheed?
Exactly, his father was a Shaheed.
Okay.
Yeah, his father was a Shaheed. His mom passes away when Babaji's like 9, 10 years old. Natural causes, like she fell down the stairs. But before his mom passed away, she gave some Sikhiyawan to Babaji.
Okay.
There's a really nice book of Baba Phula Singh which transcribed the Mataji's bachans to Baba Phula Singh. As she says, "Put ke hun main is jahan to main pooch karne wali haan. I'm going to leave now this world. But before I go, I want to make sure that you know your mission of your life. I want you to live for Dharam and die for Dharam."
Why?
That's my only request. Ke jithe hatyachar ho reha, wherever there's tyranny taking place, wherever there's oppression taking place on people, I want you to go there and stand up and fight for those people. Whoever they may be. Yeah. And their father, before passing away, was like I said, they got a wound and they didn't really pass away right away. It took a few months, but they knew that their Shahidi is near. Like when they saw that this wound isn't going to get better, they looked towards their Gurbai, Baba Nana Singh, the 5th Satya of Akal Takht, and they told Baba Nana Singh Ji that if you can become the teacher of Baba Phula Singh, teach him everything from Shastra and Shastra.
So his father did this binti to Baba Nana Singh, who was the Jathedar of Akal Takht.
Exactly.
Okay, so his father must have been close to the Jathedar.
So actually, it's believed that through the Jathedar, Baba Akali Phula Singh was born. So how that Saki goes is that when Baba Isha Singh and their wife were not able to conceive for a very long period of time, one day in their pind, which was their pind was called Shiha, is in the south of Punjab, Malwa region. In a Shiha, a group of Nihang Singhs came with Baba Nana Singh at that time. They came as they were like doing Chakravarti Piara. They were going around. They came to that pind, and Baba Isha Singh Ji, out of their pavana, called them over to their house, the whole Fauja, and served langar to all the soldiers, of Baba Nana Singh Ji's army. And Sari Akali Surme Sikh Nihang Singhs pray, because Baba Nana Singh Ji, like I said, they're not only the Akal Takht Jathedar, which is the institution of like political rule and decisions in Sikh circles, but they were also the leader, the Jathedar of Buddha Dal, which is the highest battalion, you can say, of the Nihang Singh forces.
Okay.
Nihang Singhs have different dals, Nanak Dal, Tarna Dal, Bidhi Chand Dal, these all different types of battalions, you can say.
Okay.
And out of those battalions, Buddha Dal is seen to be what governs all of them. Also, at that time period, all the Jathedars, whoever maybe like Justice Singh Ahluwalia, or whoever came before, they had the same role, where they were Jathedar of Akal Takht and so Buddha Dal as well. So that's why all the Nihang Singh forces came. They came to Baba Isha Singh Ji's house, they had prashada, and they said, Tusi kuch mango, ask for something, right?
Yes.
And Baba Isha Singh, the father of Akali Baba Phula Singh, said that please, if you can do ardas to Guru Ramdas Ji for us, then maybe we have a child who's a surma like you. And Baba Nana Singh Ji, the Singhs did ardas at that time. They a few years later, or as time progressed, Baba Phula Singh Ji was born to Bhai Issues.
Okay, so then they almost saw them, again, this isn't a term in our religion, but they saw them as almost like the godfather. Like, Tadi kirpaa de naal hi sanu puttar milya.
Exactly.
If I give Shahidi, I want you to raise our son.
Exactly. Exactly.
So then that means that Akali Baba Phula Singh Ji was learning and growing at the charan of Baba Nana Singh Ji.
Yes.
The Jathedar of Buddha Dal. So he was learning Jathedari.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so it only makes perfect sense for them to become the next Jathedar, because from a young age, it's like one of those karate movies.
Okay.
As a young kid, they just teach them karate,
Yeah.
And then when they're like 9, 10, 11 years old, they can kill a person, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like that. Imagine Baba Phula Singh at such a young age, they're learning straight Vidya from a Jathedar of the Panth, right? And they're learning everything from Shastra and Shastra, like I mentioned before. And Shastra meaning like weaponry, force riding, how to use your sword, how to use a gun, how to use your shield, how to live in the wild. And then Shastra, which means anything to do with literature, meaning Gurbani Santhya. And they learn so many Baniya, they had so many Baniya Gant at a very young age.
Okay, do you know what his role was? Like, how was he spending his days?
Yeah, so a lot of his time, especially when they got older, Baba Phula Singh spent doing seva at Amritsar or Sri Anandpur Sahib, doing seva with different Guru Tamadev. Because at that time period, jede Guru Kar se kache si, like the foundations of the physical buildings of the Guru Kar were kache, right? They weren't like formalized into what we see today, like a marble and stone. Even like Harmandir Sahib was not covered in gold at the time, right? It was actually because of an action of Baba Phula Singh that led to Harmandir Sahib being covered in gold by Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So Baba Phula Singh would spend so much of his time at different Guru Kars doing seva of the Sarovars as well. Because like Ahmad Shah Abdali and all these different invaders that would come from Afghanistan, they would attack the Sarovars because they realized that Singhs would get Shakti from Sarovars. Okay. So even today, Baba Phula Singh Ji's Jadi Yadgari Asthan hai, a place of remembrance from them. One is located where they became shaheed, which is in modern day Pakistan today, a place called Nashara. And then another one is in Amritsar because they done seva there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, I'm sure it's not common for a father to give his son Jathedari, and at this point, Baba Nana Singh Ji is practically the father of Akali Baba Phula Singh Ji. So how did that decision making happen? How was it chosen that Akali Baba Phula Singh Ji would become Jathedar?
Well, Jathedari comes down to, I would imagine, because I did not find exactly a place in history for this question.
Yes.
But I would imagine that Jathedari would be someone to be eligible to become the Jathedar of the Panth. Their kardar or their character is what's being questioned, and I would imagine skills of leadership to be in one of those criterias.
Right.
I would imagine Gurmukhi Avastha to be in one of those criterias. I would imagine all these different things to play a huge role of who's going to become Jathedar next. And when Baba Phula Singh, what we learned from their history, from the beginning to the end, is that their character, jo main bachne keh dete wo main pure karke karne hai, right? Like for example, Guru Saaheb Jee Maharaj says that who's a surma, they say bachan ke bali. Who's a surma? Surma is that person who gives their bachan, their words, and they commit to that bachan no matter what happens. So Baba Phula Singh had all those guns, all those characters to them that a eligible Jathedar should have.
Okay. So, what are some remarkable things that Akali Baba Phula Singh Ji does through his Jathedari? Some, things noteworthy.
Noteworthy things? Well, one is for sure is that through the Jathedari they take command of the Akali forces, and the Akali forces or Akali soldiers are those Sikhs, those Khalsa Surbirs, those soldiers that are not only loyal to the state,
okay,
but their first loyalty goes to the Guru.
Right.
So, for example, in Maharaja Ranjit Singh's Raj, he had his own soldiers, but then the Jathedar of Akal Takht, i.e. Baba Phula Singh, had their own soldiers within that state, right? So, I guess it's that idea of state within the state,
Right.
And Babaji's soldiers are first loyal to Baba Phula Singh, and then loyal to Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So one remarkable event is their Shahidi, and which is something that we all should remember, and that goes something like this. Babaji's Shahidi takes place in a place called Nashara, and what was happening, this is 1823, so it's halfway through the Sikh Raj.
Okay.
Yeah, halfway through the Sikh Raj, Maharaja Ranjit Singh gets word that, so the beginning of the year, January, that this guy, whose name is Azim Muhammad Amir Shah, he's gathering a big force. He's in Afghanistan area, on the border of Afghanistan, Pakistan. He's gathering a huge force, gathering a huge army under the name that Islam is in danger. I guess he's realized that that's the only way to beat Maharaja Ranjit Singh from expanding their army, expanding their Raj, is to get all the Musliman on one side.
Yeah, I still read today certain individuals will post that Maharaja Ranjit Singh was really bad for Islam. And they quote these resources that completely clash with our history.
Okay.
Where Maharaja Ranjit Singh builds masjids, mosques. He's actually, helping all different religions under his Raj grow.
Yeah.
So that narrative actually lives today in some places.
Yeah, it does. And I think it's the reason could be because of a situation like this.
Yeah.
Where one person is propagating, like it's propaganda, right? That, look, all the Sikhs, these Kafirs, are taking over. They took over Punjab already. They took over the capital of Punjab, which was Lahore. They took over, they're now entering Afghanistan, like Peshawar,
right.
Multan. These cities were once Afghanistani cities. Now they're in Pakistan today because of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. And what's next? The question goes out to the Islamic community. What's next? Where next?
Yeah.
And this propaganda is pushed that his rule, because the idea is that borders are all man-made, right? Today we draw a line and say this is California, and this is the border of California is touching or next to Seattle, Washington.
Borders, yeah.
Is all man-made. But the rulers of those borders are men, right?
Right.
What better men to rule over? I don't mean this in specifically one gender, but like what better person to rule over that fake border area than a very pious and generous king like Maharaja Jesspreet Singh. Like you said, whenever he put a sona gold on a guru card, he'll put as much on a Hindu mandir or a mosque as well. And whenever he employed people in his army, he will employ Muslim and Hindus and even American, Italian, European soldiers. You know, there was no clash of, but the only thing he had was Sikh values.
Okay.
And Sikh values meant justice for everyone. Sikh values meant compassion for everyone. Even to the point that case, everyone that entered his army, generals in his army, had to have case. So if you look at pictures of Alexander Gardner, American from Wisconsin, right, who came to Maharaja Jesspreet Singh army, he had a beard. There's a beautiful book on him called The Tainted Turban, and they show his picture in the front. He's wearing a turban and he has a beard.
Yeah. The French released a documentary or like a show on Maharaja Jesspreet Singh.
Oh, really?
And his Raj, yeah. They also, I believe there's an Italian or French general that had a Dardi in his darbar as well. I think his only rule was that you have to keep your gis.
Yes.
You can follow whatever religion you want, but you have to have gis. And that was like a symbol of that you serve the darbar of the Sikh Raj.
Yes.
So, but within that, obviously, every time Maharaja Jesspreet Singh would look to Akali Baba Phula Singh Ji for any type of religious punishment, religious maneuvering. So how did that sort of look like? What were some times where Maharaja Jesspreet Singh turned to Akali Baba Phula Singh?
Yes. When he could not take over an area, his last resort became Baba Phula Singh. And it all started with the Battle of Multan. I know we touched into the Rashid, but we'll come back in there. The battle of Multan, and I think we were talking about this earlier, that when Maharaja Jesspreet Singh saw that they have no chara, they can't get back Multan, right? They went to Darbar Sahib, and this was a habit that Maharaj is noted in history to have, is that whenever he was in big trouble, he'll go straight to Harmandir Sahib and do a Benti there, Ardasa Benti. After doing Ardasa Benti, he'll go to Akal Takht and do Ardasa Benti there. And such a period came when he was not able to take over a city called Multan. He went to Harmandir Sahib, did his Benti, he did his request, did his Ardas prayer. Then he moved on to Akal Takht. And when he did his Ardasa there, out comes Baba Phula Singh, of Akal Takht. And it's like his prayer was answered by Guru Ramdas, and this commander, will take over what you need, right? And Baba Phula Singh at that point asked Maharaja Jesspreet Singh asked Baba Phula Singh at that point, "Ki Baba Ji, we're trying to take over Multan, but fateh nahi ho raha. We can't win this morcha. Can you please help us?" And Baba Phula Singh blew their conch shell, and 500 Akali soldiers, tiyar bar tiyar, came right next to them, ready to give up their lives for Baba Phula Singh, ready to sacrifice everything under their command. And at that moment, Baba Phula Singh got their 500 soldiers ready, and they went straight into Dartiya Multan, and they conquered it, and no problem, no questions asked. There was one of the last forts that they couldn't beat. When the Babaji came, blew their conch shell, all the 500 Akali soldiers, they came and they attacked. And before they came, 20,000 soldiers were already there of Maharaja Jesspreet Singh's army that were not able to take over that Qila.
Right, so 500 of Akali Faujan did what 20,000 regular Sikh soldiers couldn't do.
Yeah.
That's Chadee Kalaa. So then there's this, back and forth where Maharaja Jesspreet Singh is going to Akali Baba Phula Singh. Finally, we get to the jang that is the Shahidi of Akali Baba Phula Singh Ji. What is that jang? What is the purpose, and how does it happen?
Sure. So, like I was saying, Azim Muhammad, he's gathering a huge army. Yeah, he has already 20,000 people under his wing, and now he's under his propaganda. He's gonna get a bunch of other Muslims as well, because Muslims have different jathebandis, you can say.
Okay.
Right. So he already got the Pathans on his side, right? Which were people who lived in the mountains of Afghanistan, like these type of people. He got them on his side. Now he was going over a river called Lunda Darya. He was going to go over that river to contact a different group of Islamic people and get them on his side as well, and his numbers will have increased even more.
Right.
So in the beginning of the year, he's working all this stuff. Maharaja Ranjit Singh finds out, and it's March now. Well, when they launch a plan, what their plan is that they'll make 4 jathebandis.
Okay.
One Jatha Baba Phula Singh. So you had Baba Phula Singh's one jathebandi of 1,500 Akalis. Then you had someone named Sardar Desa Singh Manjeetia and Fateh Singh Aluwalia, who had about 2,500 people on their side. Then you had Shahzada Khadg Singh, who was the son of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, alongside Hari Singh Nalwa, which is another prominent figure that we heard before, right? Sardar Pritam Singh Karjakiye, and the French military expert whose name was Jean Francis Allard, with about 5,000 soldiers, yeah, and 6 small cannon. And the 4th Jathebandi was Maharaja Ranjit Singh.
Okay.
So they all make their way now to an area called Nashara, which is near the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan, but it falls in Pakistan today. So they're making their way there. Once they get there, what happens is that Baba Phula Singh does an ardas. Right? It's Amrit Villa. Baba Phula Singh goes into their tent. Everyone has their own tents. They go into their tent, they do ardasa. They say, Sache Paatshah Guru Ka Gita Pita, we're going to fight this battle today. Nashara, tusi ang sang sahita kariyo. Once everything's done, they come out of their tent, and Maharaja Ranjit Singh re-strategizing his plan of attack, because he's found out that Muhammad Azim, he has a lot of artillery forces. His army is very strong. They found out his numbers are not what they expected. It was much more. He has a big number, a big force now. He has much more cannons, artillery forces than they have. They only brought 4 cannons, right? So Maharaja Ranjit Singh re-strategizes and says, you know what, let's hold off our attack. Let's call for backup, right? Backup will come. John Baptista Ventura, he's coming, the Italian soldier. He's coming with more cannons. He will be here in a few days, then we'll attack.
Right.
When Baba Phula Singh hears this re-strategy, he says, I can't do that. I've already done ardas to Guru Ka Gita Pita ke aaj ladai karni hai, but today we're fighting. So you're telling me we're going to fight tomorrow or next day after? That's not something I can do, because I've already done the ardas.
Oh, Hector.
And Itihaskar historians have written this a poem from Baba Phula Singh. They say, Kar ardasa mud nahi sakta Phula Singh Akali ji, which means that once Baba Phula Singh has done the ardas, he can't turn back. Yeah, it's done deal. Baba Phula Singh takes out their kirpaan and they do a jakara. They get on their horse and they start going, right?
Right.
All the Akali forces like, oh, you gotta go too. They get on their horses and they run after Babaji. Khadg Singh is like, oh no. He's like, I gotta tell my dad. Like Baba Phula Singh is already off to war. He only has 1,500 people in total. How he's gonna beat this, right? So they go into war. Maharaja Ranjit Singh is notified. He's like, damn it. They also get onto their horsebacks and they get their units ready and they go after Babaji. Babaji goes and they start shooting, they start fighting, right? As the war goes on, Babaji's horse becomes shaheed. They get off their horse, they call for an elephant, get on the elephant. And now they're on the elephant, they're fighting, they're shooting arrows, they have a spear in their hand, and they're destroying the army, right?
Yeah.
But what happens is from the other side, the enemy side, they shoot 2 bullets at Babaji and they hit straight into their forehead.
Right.
2 bullets go straight into Babaji's forehead, and right away they give Shahidi. But they give Shahidi in such a way, they don't go back, they fall forward. They give a salami to Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, to the junk that's happening, right?
Right.
And what we know about Akalis and Hang Singh forces are that term Akali for a reason, because why they're Akali? First, Akali means Kal to death, one that cannot be defeated by death.
Yeah.
Second, Akali because they carry a Nishan Sahib on their Damalla at all times. They have a Farla coming out, right? That Farla represents the Nishan Sahib, right? That Nishan Sahib in battle, when a Nishanchi, which means the person who carries the Nishan Sahib, falls in battle, becomes Shaheed, we never say they died, or we never say they fell. We say, oh, salami dege.
Salami.
Because they fall like their belly, you know?
Yeah.
And Babaji salami dege in the sense that when they came down, their head rested on the elephant's head, and their farla still rose.
Yeah.
And they waved in the wind. So the whole time, friendly and enemy forces thought Babaji was alive. The whole time the battle was going, that's why their morale was so high. Their morale was so high because they're like, Babaji's still on our side.
Wow.
Maharaja Ranjit Singh comes to battle and they're like, Babaji's still here, everyone's fighting. Then eventually Maharaja Ranjit Singh gets the word that Babaji has become Shaheed. Maharaji said, don't tell anyone. Let everything play out. And as they let everything play out, they won the battle in the shadow.
Wow.
They won the battle in the shadow with such less artillery forces and everything. And Babaji gave Shahidi there. Maharaja Ranjit Singh with his own hands, they did the Antam Sanskar of Baba Phula Singh in Nashar Karti. And they attached a Jagir, they attached property, about 20,000 kille to that Jagir. And today, I've heard from many Gursikhs that today Musliman do Salami there, they do Seva at that Asthan because they believe in the power of Shaheed Singhs. They believe that the Shaheed Singhs are there, they're governing that area. They don't touch that area. They go there and they worship the area.
Right.
Even till today.
That's incredible.
Thank you for asking all these questions and sharing in Babaji's saddle.
Thank you for all the information about Akali Baba Phula Singh Ji. That's Mahan, that I feel better connected to Akali Baba Phula Singh Ji was. Thank you, Vijay.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you.
Waheguru Ji.
Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.
Waheguru, Waheguru.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Please donate and help spread Guruji's message. Link is in the description below. Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.
Waheguru, Waheguru.
Dealing with the death of a loved one can be one of the most distressing, painful, and challenging experiences that we're ever going to go through. It can leave us feeling like we need help, but we don't know what to do. We don't know how to move forward. And it can feel like life has completely come to a standstill. And then there are all those unanswered questions. Why did this have to happen to them? Why now? Will the pain ever go away? What's happened to them? Where are they now? When we're in this situation, it feels like nothing can be done about it. And deep down, it feels like things are never going to be the same again. So this course aims to provide you with some guidance, to try and find a way to make sense of this whole situation, to learn new ways that we can manage the pain. And I'm sure you're going to be asking, can anything really be done about it? Well, the way I want you to think about it is when you have a wound, what do? Think about the last time you had a cut or a bruise. You apply some medicine. Maybe you put some cream to soothe the pain, and you put a plaster to nurse the wound. Well, I want you to think about the death of your loved one as an emotional wound. And whenever this happens, you only have two options. You can either leave it alone to let it heal over time, or you can apply a medicine. And the medicine that we're going to use is higher wisdom as a way to soothe the pain that we're going through. There's an ancient belief that when you're going through a trauma, it's like we're being hit by two arrows. The first arrow is the event that's happened, but the second arrow, the one that pains the most, is our mental reaction to that event. Now, spiritual wisdom doesn't aim to deal with the first arrow. We all know that events in life, difficult events happen, but they can't be changed. But wisdom can be applied to deal with that second arrow, our mental reaction. Because even though the events can't be changed, it's our perspective that can be changed. And we're going to be using sacred verses from a spiritual text known as the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. And throughout this course, I'm going to be referring to it as the Guru or the enlightened wisdom. Because if we use this wisdom, we can try to change our thoughts. And when we change our thoughts, we can change our reality. Not the event, but our reaction to that event. This course is arranged over 4 lessons where we use spiritual wisdom to help us answer these really important questions. Why do I feel so much sadness? Why did my loved one leave me? Will the pain ever go away? How do I move forward? Now, this course can be taken by yourself, but I think it's more beneficial for you to take these lessons in a group where there are other like-minded individuals around you
who can also offer their guidance and their practical advice about how they dealt with this situation. Either way, I encourage you to take your time with these lessons. You may want to watch them a few times to make sure that you've absorbed what's being taught. And at the end of each lesson, try to answer the questions to see how you can apply this wisdom in your own life and to help you process your grief. So let's begin. One of the most common feelings that people have is when they say, I can't stop missing them. I can't stop thinking about them. Everything I look at reminds me of them. So what do I do? And when we ask people, we seem to get a lot of conflicting advice. Some people tell us, hold your head up high. Don't cry. It'll be okay. And yet there are others that say it's perfectly natural to let it all out, to feel whatever you're feeling. However we're grieving, it's so important that we realize that this really isn't a question of right or wrong. But at some point, you may want to ask yourself this question. Am I ready to deal with the pain? Because if I don't, I can end up avoiding it or running away from it. Sometimes we suppress our pain. And when we do, then there's a danger that we experience a prolonged period of suffering and mental agony. And sometimes this can last a lifetime. And I know that things can be quite confusing. There are so many emotions that we experience. If people ask us how we're feeling, it can be so difficult to explain or to describe what we're going through. So this lesson is all about trying to understand our feelings, trying to put words to those difficult emotions that we may be experiencing that we just don't know how to explain. So let's explore our emotions. In this first lesson, what I thought would be useful would be to just go through and try to describe all the different emotions that we may be feeling. Sometimes when we don't know how to explain them, it can be helpful just to put words to these difficult emotions. And you may find it useful to actually write them down. But at no point do I want you to judge yourself. We're going to try to heal through understanding ourselves, not by placing a judgment on whether we should or we shouldn't be going through these. And this list of emotions isn't in any sort of order. So let's start with sorrow. We can experience such a deep sense of sorrow, separation, and longing, where we feel that every single day is a struggle. And what we're going through there is a loss. We're feeling the loss of companionship, that closeness that you had with your loved one. You'd remember all the joys that you went through. You're feeling the loss of that security of just having them around, because when they were around, it felt like everything was going to be okay. And when we have this loss, it can end up feeling like our life is meaningless. I've heard people refer to it as just being numb. Life is empty. I feel stuck. Sometimes we might think that we don't even feel human anymore. I've got no motivation to interact with the world. I feel totally disconnected. And at different times, you may feel angry. You may feel hurt, resentment, feeling like life has somehow cheated you. You didn't deserve to go through this. Your loved one didn't deserve what happened to them. There's such a big question around why. Why did they die? And blame is often the thing that comes after anger. You can feel like you want to be angry at something or someone. Sometimes we vent our anger at life itself, towards God. Sometimes if our loved one has been through an accident, we want to blame the doctors. We want to blame the driver of the other car, the government for not putting the right things in place to keep your loved one safe. Sometimes we blame our loved ones. Why did you leave me? Why did you cause me so much pain? We can also feel angry at our friends and family that come round to try and help. Sometimes they're trying so hard to fix the problem and nothing they do can help us feel any better. Do you find at times that you just want to be left alone? And then there is self-blame. You can feel regret for all the things that were never done. Did I spend enough time with them? Did I tell them how I felt? Sometimes you feel such a sense of guilt that you didn't do enough. You didn't do what could be done to protect them. Sometimes we go through worry, where we feel uncertain about how we're going to manage our life right now. How are we going to live without them? And this can be really tricky if the other person was supporting you in some way, supporting you financially or even emotionally. And at times we're going to feel alone. We're going to feel like nothing is ever going to be the same anymore. No one else is going to be around who could do what they did, who could provide what they did in your life. Nothing is ever going to replace that lost love. Now, there are a few more emotions that we're going to be talking about. But right now, I want you to pause this lesson and write down the 2 or 3 emotions that you're really struggling with. It could be the ones that we've talked about already. And think about if there are any other emotions that we may have missed. So do it now, and when you're ready, start the lesson again. When you look at that list, you might be wondering, why do we go through so many different emotions when we're grieving? And it comes down to the fact that between you and your loved one, an emotional bond was created, a closeness that now seems to be broken. Think about it. You don't mourn somebody who you've never known or never met. On average, they say that on any given day, 164,000 people have died. That means on the day that your loved one died, almost 164,000 people also died. But we don't mourn their death. In fact, somebody who lived down your own street may have died, but if you don't know them, it doesn't seem to hurt that much. We're only mourning that one person, because now there's a bond that's been broken. And this is such a major change in our life that it can be really difficult to adjust. And it's completely natural to experience this wide range of emotions. Because really what we're doing is we're struggling. We're struggling to let go. It feels like we're being forced against our will to break a relationship that we didn't want broken. And then there is the worry of what it's going to be like to move forward. A lot of us have a misconception that moving forward is about forgetting them. We feel that grieving is the only correct response, because that's the way that we show that we still love them, that we still hold on to them, that they're still dear to us, and we're continuing on their memory. We worry that sometimes we forget what it was like having them around, and that leaves us feeling really guilty. And we don't want the guilt of not remembering them. We don't want to feel like we're dishonoring them, like we're losing our connection, because that leaves us really vulnerable. And this is where fear comes in. We're afraid of letting go. We're afraid that moving on is going to a place that's unknown to us. And sometimes it can just be more comfortable to stay in grief, to stay holding on to the memory of them. So let's make one thing really clear. The goal is not to forget them. We're not trying to delete them from our life. The goal is to get to a point where we can remember without pain, where every time we think about them, we have a smile on our face, where we can have a sense of gratitude for just having them in our life. And I know that that can seem like a faraway goal. And sometimes all we want to know is, how do I manage my emotions now? What do I do when I'm lost in this whirlwind of emotions? And sometimes it doesn't even just feel like a mental pain. Sometimes it's a physical pain in our heart, where we can feel it in our chest and we can't even take a deep breath properly. You know, there may be moments when you wake up in the morning and just for a second, your mind seems clear. And then all of a sudden, the memories of the pain start flooding back in. So whenever you feel overwhelmed, I want you to take a breath, slow your breathing down, and just do one thing. Remember the blessings that your loved one had in their life. Just try to remember one amazing thing that you're grateful for that they got to experience. In fact, do it right now. Pause this lesson and write down 2 or 3 blessings that they had in their life. And when you're doing that, think about what would they have said was a blessing in their life? What are the things that they had that you're really thankful for? Now, in the other lessons, we're going to be looking at more ways that we can manage the pain. But for now, I want you to have a look at these questions and either write down the answers or discuss them in your groups. What emotions are you most uncomfortable with right now? What gives you comfort these days? How are your family and friends responding to your loss? What blessings in your loved one's life are you most thankful for? In this lesson, we seek to answer one of the most difficult questions. Why did our loved one leave us? And this is where the spiritual wisdom has an important message to teach us. Death is not a punishment. Death is not your enemy. And sometimes it can feel like this huge injustice that's happened to us. Death can feel like something that we need to fear before it happens. And when it happens to our loved ones, it's just something that we need to tolerate. And this is because we've been conditioned from a young age that birth is good and death is bad. Society has trained us to think that receiving is better than losing. And because we think like that, we naturally want to hold on to pleasure forever. And we want to run away from pain as much as possible. And what this does is this creates an imbalance within our mind. It's like only wanting the sun to rise and never wanting it to set. I grew up in a home where I was told to never discuss death. It's almost as though if you brought it up in conversation, you were going to invite the force of death into your home. But I've always felt that death doesn't need my invitation. And the wisdom of Guru Granth Sahib teaches a similar message. It says, Marna Murat Puchya, Puchi Tit Navar. Death never asks the time, nor the date or day of the week. So what the wisdom is teaching us is that death shouldn't be avoided. It's an inevitable truth that needs to be understood and even embraced. But often we ask, but why did this happen now? Why did it happen to them? Why do the good people seem to die? We want to have reasons for why we're going through this trauma in our life. Is it something to do with our past karma? Could their destiny have been changed in some way? And to this, the wisdom teaches us that death really is a mystery. It really is unknown why it acts the way it does. But what it teaches us is death isn't something to be avoided. In fact, it's a necessary law of nature. What we learn is that nothing would exist without death. I'm reminded of a time where I was driving my car on the highway and I went past a car scrapyard. And while I was driving past, I thought about the very first car that I had ever owned. And I was thinking, I wonder where that car is now. It's so old that surely it's not around in that same shape or that same form. But then as I was thinking about it, it made me realize that all the parts of the car must still exist somewhere. All the metal, the plastics, the rubber, the glass, they couldn't have disappeared. They can't have gone anywhere. Somehow, somewhere, they're still here. It made me realize that the same truth can be applied to us. All of our atoms that our body is made from is borrowed from nature. Think about all the food that you eat, whether it's plants or animals. All of the things that you eat have gone into your body and have made it what it is right now. So death is necessary for us to survive. The very reason that we're alive is because we are reliant on the death of the food, the plant, the animal that we've eaten, in order to keep us alive. And this gives us a better perspective about what death really means in life. When we think like this, we realize that our loved one hasn't disappeared, but in fact, they've just returned home to where they came from. Temporarily, there was a life force that was in their body, but now their body has gone back into the earth. Their breath has gone back into the air. All their fluids in the body have gone back into the oceans. And their life energy merges with the life energy that's all around us. When we understand life like this, we realize that death is not our enemy. It's simply a transition. It's the universe changing from one form to another. And we realize how important it is to have death all around us. It's like trying to understand that the sun has to set in order for the stars to come out at night. And then that transitions into another sunrise. And so the sunrise is not against the sunset. In fact, they just complement each other. You know, at home, I have these apple trees growing in my back garden. And for just a few short weeks a year, these beautiful pink and white flowers appear. And I'm always a little bit sad when the flowers die and disappear. But then I realize that those flowers have to die in order for the apples to grow. And when we think like this, we begin to understand that this is all just a beautiful cycle that all of us are in. We're all a part of this system. Now the question is, can we accept this process of the universe? Can we understand that we're part of a system that's far bigger than we can comprehend? Because as long as you hold on to the pain, you're holding on to a feeling that you've been wronged somehow. And when we do this, we're denying death. We're saying that we only want life. And this is an imbalance. If you held a funeral for your loved one, then I want you to understand that that was an important, symbolic ceremony. A ceremony where you are handing back your loved one, returning them back to life. If you buried your loved one's body, or you spread their ashes out in nature, what you were doing was you were acknowledging that they were a gift that you had to borrow for a short period of time. But at the end, they needed to be returned. But always remember that your loved ones are still here. In a different way, in a different form. Their life energy is all around you. Their body has transitioned into a different form. Every time you see a new baby, new flowers, birds flying up above. This is your loved one. This is the energy of your loved one. Their life energy is in all these beautiful things around you. So they haven't gone anywhere. In fact, they are everywhere. So I hope that you can take comfort in this important wisdom. Death is not a punishment. Death is not your enemy. Have a go at trying to answer these questions, either by writing them down or discussing them in your groups. Which practices and ceremonies have you found useful to come to terms with the death of your loved one? Are you able to see your loved one's funeral as a step towards your healing? What is the most difficult time of day or week for you, and why?
कब से जानते हो इस लड़की को? कब से जानते हो इस लड़के को? जो भी हो, लड़की हो लड़का हो, कब से जानते हो इसको? 1 हफ्ता, 2 हफ्ता, 1 महीना, 2 महीना, साल, 2 साल, 3 साल? अब वो 18-19 साल से जो बैठे हैं वो, तुम्हें कुछ याद है बचपन में क्या क्या हुआ है? एक बार सोचते हो कभी? खुद उनके पेट में प्रॉब्लम चल रही है, उनके सर में दर्द चल रहा है, महीनों से डॉक्टर के पास नहीं जाएंगे, तुमको थोड़ा सा फीवर आया, लेके पहुंच गए डॉक्टर के पास। क्यों नहीं जाते थे? क्योंकि भाई साहब वो डॉक्टर की 500 रुपए की फीस देने में हालत खराब होती थी, और तुम्हारे लिए पहुंच गए। पापा के पास क्या होते थे? 4 कपड़े होते थे, वही 4 शर्ट होती थी, और वही 1 जूता होता था, वही ऑफिस पहनते थे, वही पार्टी में पहनते थे, वही घर में पहनते थे। और तुम्हारे पास स्पोर्ट्स शू है, तुम्हारे पास स्कूल शू है, जॉगिंग शू है, पापा यहाँ घुमाए ले चलो, यहाँ घुमाए ले चलो, पापा लेके भी जा रहे हैं। ये तरह से मैनेज करके तुम कुछ खिला रहे, क्योंकि चाहते हैं तुम खुश रहो। बदले में क्या चाहते हैं? तुम कुछ बन जाओ जीवन में, अपने लिए नहीं चाहते।